Okay. Take this off. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here at the Joseph and Wolf Lebovic Jewish Community Center here in Maple. Thank you so much for hosting us to this wonderful facility. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge some of the guests with us today. My friend and colleague, Jane McKenna, the Minister of Children and Women's Issues, as well as Chief Jim McSween of York Region Police. Good to have you here, Chief. And Cheryl Pereira, the founder and president of OneChild. As we have been clear, our government has said the top priority for us is the safety of children. It's why I'm pleased to be here today to speak about the work we are undertaking to safeguard our children and our youth. The government has taken a number of measures to combat professional misconduct in schools and childcare settings, including a zero-tolerance approach to crimes against children. The government is now taking further action to make the education profession more accessible and accountable to families and to deliver greater transparency. We know and we want parents to be aware of the information related to the safety and security of their children. That's why Ontario is becoming the first Canadian jurisdiction to publicly disclose and make parents aware of educators who've been involved in sexual abuse and other serious criminal proceedings. Last year, I introduced a series of sweeping amendments and reforms to the Ontario College of Teachers Act and the Early Childhood Educators Act to keep children and childcare settings safe. These reforms are helping to keep schools and childcare and early years settings in the province safe by preventing individuals unfit to practice from continuing to work directly with children. It's why today we're announcing that we're going to build upon the measures that our government has already taken to combat professional misconduct by educators in schools and childcare settings. These changes include, as noted, the imposing of a lifetime ban on any educator who's engaged in physical, sexual relations with a child or involved in any way with child pornography. We are retroactively imposing lifetime bans on educators by who engage in physical sexual abuse of children for previous similar acts by teachers and early childhood educators whose membership were reinstated or not revoked in the first place. And we're requiring that both the Ontario College of Teachers and the College of Early Childhood Educators, both regulators, provide funding for therapy and counseling to children, to students who are victims of sexual abuse and prohibited sexual acts. And we're requiring that information about disciplinary decisions made by the college's discipline committee, including less serious acts, be permanently available on both registrars, publicly available for parents in this province. Now today, Minister McKenna and I are going further by making information public about criminal proceedings involving their members on their public registers. We're doing this with one aim, and that is to protect the safety of students and your children, because our message is clear: zero tolerance for anyone who will harm a child. Publicly posting this information allows parents to know which educators have been involved in criminal proceedings that are relevant to their practice when this information is known to the college. These changes are some of the ways we're making and taking action to make the education profession more accountable to families with a zero tolerance approach to crimes against children. In addition to promoting greater transparency, the government is firmly committed to preventing, to stopping sexual abuse before it even begins. And it's why the government today is also announcing mandatory, comprehensive sexual abuse prevention program for all certified educators and early childhood educators as well, making Ontario the only province in Canada to have mandatory sexual abuse prevention training for all educators to be completed by September 15th of this year. The Ontario College of Teachers has put in place a sexual abuse prevention program to all of its members in good standing, and as I noted, it must be completed by September. New and returning applicants are required to complete the sexual abuse prevention program along with all other certification requirements in order to become certified. Because for our government, we believe parents have a right to know if an educator is charged or convicted of a serious crime, because we take zero tolerance on this. And for the College of Early Childhood Educators, completion of the sexual abuse prevention program will be done by summer of 2022. Now I want to be very clear that we value so deeply the work that educators do across the province, whether it's in our classrooms, our childcare facilities, early on centers, or before and after school programs. They play a critical role to the protection of safety, overwhelmingly hardworking, law-abiding, decent people who care about our kids. But these charters are focused on protecting what matters most, and that is Ontario's youth. And we have the full support of the Ontario College of Teachers and the College of Early Childhood Educators to enact these reforms to protect children. It is about ensuring that children and students in our schools and early years and our childcare settings are protected, and that the public has confidence in our publicly funded system and our regulated educators. Thank you so much, and I now look forward to passing it over to Minister McKenna to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Minister Lecce. Every student in Ontario deserves a learning environment where they are safe and feel safe. We know the foundation of successful and high-performing schools is a caring, respectful, and positive learning environment. From policymakers to parents, caregivers, and school staff, we all have a role to play in protecting the intellectual, physical, mental, and emotional well-being of children in this province. During the school years, kids spend most of their days at school. They run around in the playground, they eat lunch together, they sit in classrooms and learn together. And for every activity, there is an adult on duty. So you would expect that the people our kids and grandkids come into contact with are safe. Today's announcement gives the Ontario College of Teachers and the College of Early Childhood Educators the clear authority to make information public on criminal proceedings involving their members. The new standard of transparency is a first in Canada, and it will provide parents and caregivers with added confidence. Childhood and adolescence involves learning about the world and finding your place in it. As a mother of 5 and grandmother of 5, with another one on the way, I know that when kids feel safe and supported, they learn, they're happy, and they thrive. That's why our government is committed to ensuring that children and youth with diverse abilities achieve their highest potential. As Ontario's Associate Minister of Children and Women's Issues, I'm proud of the work our government and Minister Lecce is doing to create a safe learning environment for all students. This afternoon's announcement is part of our coordinated approach across government to support and protect children, give them every opportunity to succeed. I want to thank everyone for joining us here today. And now I'd like to invite Cheryl Piera, founder and president of OneChild, to say a few words.
Thank you, Minister McKenna. On behalf of OneChild, the first organization that's empowering a child and youth-led movement against the sexual exploitation of children, I'd like to congratulate the Ontario government for introducing these critical safeguards for children. When parents kiss their children goodbye in the morning and they send their children off to school, they do so with confidence and comfort that their child is going to be in a safe, secure, and nurturing environment to learn and grow. For some children, school is their only safe haven, unlike their homes. And they see teachers as trusted adults and role models. To learn after a verdict is made that your teacher or your child's teacher was involved in sexual abuse or other serious criminal proceedings, it erodes trust among children and parents. For these reasons, we welcome this new measure that you've heard about today. Now, since 2005, we at OneChild have been working very hard with Ontario school boards and schools to prevent sexual exploitation through youth-led workshops and trainings for educators on the issue of child sex trafficking. And we're proud to have worked with educators, many educators who are wholly committed to preventing and protecting children from this issue. But sex trafficking is only one form of sexual abuse. Others include child sexual abuse images or sextortion and others. After our presentations in schools, we have had students disclose to us other forms of sexual abuse, including sexual abuse in the home. So this problem is rampant, and we cannot rely solely on charities like OneChild to prevent and to protect children. Educators are on the front lines, and they can play a powerful role in disseminating information to students on topics like healthy relationships, cyber safety, and tactics that predators use to lure and to groom children. And at the same time, they're poised to assist a student who may be disclosing abuse. So empowering them with the knowledge through mandatory training is key to stopping this abuse before it happens. I'd like to thank the Government of Ontario for going further, for setting an example, and for blazing the trail for other Canadian jurisdictions to follow suit. I'd like to introduce Jim McSween, York Regional Police Chief, to make a few comments.
Thank you, and good morning. On behalf of York Regional Police, I'm pleased to be here today in support of these new measures which further protect our most vulnerable citizens, our children. York Regional Police remains committed to doing everything possible to ensure the well-being of our students and children in childcare. So this announcement today by Minister Lecce and Minister McKenna is certainly a welcome one. The first jurisdiction in Canada to do so, Ontario, is giving the Ontario College of Teachers and the College of Early Childhood Educators the authority to release information about criminal proceedings involving their members. This will help ensure the entire system becomes more transparent and accountable. It's important that we're all made aware of information that could affect the safety and security of our kids. It's important for our educators, childcare workers, boards, and the community, but most importantly, it's important for parents who are making decisions every day to ensure their children are safe. York Regional Police also commends the government's initiative to ensure educators and childcare workers receive important training in order to prevent the possibility of sexual abuse in the first place. A comprehensive and mandatory sexual abuse prevention program is vital to protecting children and youth, and it can only improve outcomes and support for victims. We also fully support the $2.4 million investment to provide the necessary training and resources to ensure school boards and school staff are able to recognize, identify, respond, and to prevent sex trafficking of children and youth. The dedicated members of York Regional Police Human Trafficking Unit have worked for decades to combat the dark world of sex trafficking and the dangerous circumstances surrounding the sexual exploitation of women and underage girls. In the vast majority of cases, these women and girls are victims themselves, forced into the sex trade by violence, threats of violence, coercion, and trickery. Showing these victims compassion and understanding and providing assistance to help them safely exit the sex trade and access the support and care they need is an essential part of the job. York Regional Police supports any initiative rooted in a zero-tolerance approach to crimes against children. Lifetime bans for those educators involved in criminal sexual activity allows for the protection of children in the future and can act as a call for other victims to come forward. We know this type of victimization has lifelong effects, and funding for therapy and counseling greatly assists in the healing process for survivors of abuse. This is especially true for those who would otherwise not have access to resources due to socioeconomic or other vulnerable circumstances. And making disciplinary decisions a matter of public record allows boards to make more informed decisions about who they employ. It'll also help victims who have been reluctant to report. If they have the ability to research past similar behavior, it may give them the courage to come forward. The responsibility to do everything we can to protect children and keep them safe is a collective one. York Regional Police is a proud partner in that collective duty. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the floor here for questions.
Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, the TDSB is reporting absenteeism at a high rate with its teachers and class and students. How is this affecting education, not only just with the TDSB, but also province-wide?
You know, with the Omicron variant, we expected higher rates of absenteeism, and the government announced a plan to ensure schools can remain open and stable, which is why we had announced a $304 million expansion of funding to hire more staff, over 2,300 staff projected hired as we speak, helping to ensure children remain as safe as possible and engaged in the curriculum and learning. We've doubled the number of days retired educators can work. Over 10,000 retirees last year stepped up. We're grateful to them, and we really are looking forward to their participation, helping to stabilize those schools when class shortages emerge. And finally, we've expanded the number of teacher candidates that can work within our schools. All of this is making a difference to create a talent pool that is dependable for staff when these vacancies and gaps and absentee can emerge. And we're just very grateful that our systems, we're working together as a government with our school boards to keep kids engaged in learning. It's so critical to their mental and physical health, which is why we have done and we will continue to do everything humanly possible to provide the staffing supports to keep the schools stable and keep these kids engaged in learning, which is the basis of why they're in schools in the first place.
But we're also hearing that people are expressing opinions that those initiatives aren't being able to keep up. There's to a point now where teachers are mainly taking care of a huge classroom of kids as opposed to actually teaching because of the absenteeism has raised the ratio so high. Is this across the province, or is this just an isolated situation?
Well, look, staffing issues can be challenges in different parts of Ontario, sometimes even more felt in rural and remote parts of Ontario with smaller schools. The bottom line is our supports are for all families in all regions of the province, urban and rural, English and French. We want families to know that we are absolutely seized with keeping these schools open for the purpose of quality learning. We've increased investment. We've doubled the amount of retired teachers that can work within our schools. We've expanded teacher candidates to work within our schools so that your child, when on a short-term basis, a teacher has to stay home to isolate or because of illness, they have someone qualified that can step in and keep these kids engaged, keep them, their welfare, their mental health front and center, and more importantly, keep the curriculum at the forefront of the instruction. So we'll continue to be partners, invest, and do everything possible to give the resources to school boards to succeed during these difficult times.
Good, thank you for answering those ones.
Sure.
The next one is daycare, $10 a day daycare. We heard an announcement was imminent several weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago now, and we're still waiting for that shoe to drop.
We are continuing to have very constructive negotiations with the federal government. The Premier and I have been abundantly clear. We want to get a deal that is fair for all families, that reduces costs for all families, and that ultimately provides flexibility, recognizing that some families are in nonprofits, for profit. We just simply want Ontario parents to receive a meaningful rate reduction that gets us to $10. Because as I've said before, Ontario has one of the most expensive childcare costs in the nation. We know that is unacceptable. We've introduced a tax measure that saves families about $1,200 to $1,500 per child. That's going to help incrementally, but we know that there's a bigger fix here. That's for the feds to step up, work with us to deliver a childcare deal that is sustainable and brings prices down. And I want families to know we are determined to get this deal. It must be a fair deal, a good deal for Ontario families, taxpayers, and for our children. And the Premier and I will continue to negotiate with one intention, which is delivering that deal as soon as possible so we can get these fees down and create certainty for all families that are longing to get their kids in a childcare system that's accessible and affordable.
You heard the word soon, and we're past that. When can we expect this decision? When can we expect this decision?
We're working around the clock to get a deal. We know how important this is for parents. It's equally as important for the government. We know childcare is very expensive to many families here in the GTA, but really right across Ontario. And so I want to make clear our government's commitment to landing a good deal, a fair deal for Ontario families that reduces prices. And look, these negotiations may take some time, but as long as we get to a good outcome for families and reduced fees and a more accessible system that's available for parents when they need it, that is a good thing. And so we'll continue to work hard to deliver the deal, the certainty, and the fee reduction that I believe families in this province deserve.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.